The First Punic War, fought between Rome and Carthage from 264 to 241 BCE, was a monumental conflict that set the stage for Rome's eventual dominance over the Mediterranean. This war, primarily fought over control of Sicily, was the first of three major wars between these two powerful states. The conflict arose from a seemingly minor local dispute, but escalated into a prolonged and costly struggle that significantly influenced the course of Western history. The origin of the First Punic War lie in the complex political landscape of Sicily. By the mid-3rd century BCE, Sicily was a patchwork of independent cities and colonies, many of which had historical ties to either Greek or Phoenician, Carthaginian powers. The two most significant players in Sicily at the time were the city of Syracuse, a powerful Greek city-state, and Carthage, a dominant maritime power with extensive colonies and trading networks throughout the western Mediterranean. In 288 BCE, the Mamertines, a group of Italian mercenaries, seized the city of Messina in northeastern Sicily. The Mamertines, originally hired by Syracuse, betrayed their employer and took control of the city, using it as a base for raids and piracy. This action destabilized the region and drew the ire of Syracuse, then under the leadership of Herodotus. In 265 BCE, Herodotus launched a campaign to reclaim Messina and restore order. Faced with the threat of conquest by Syracuse, the Mamertines sought assistance from both Carthage and Rome. Carthage, seeing an opportunity to expand its influence in Sicily, sent a garrison to occupy Messina, ostensibly to protect it from Syracuse, but also to establish a foothold in the strategically important city. At the same time, the Mamertines appealed to Rome, which was expanding its influence beyond the Italian peninsula. Rome's Senate initially debated the wisdom of intervening in Sicily. Some senators were wary of becoming entangled in Sicilian affairs, while others saw an opportunity to curb Carthaginian power and extend Roman influence. Ultimately, Rome decided to intervene, motivated by a combination of strategic interests and the desire to prevent Carthage from gaining complete control of Messina. In 264 BCE, Rome dispatched a force to Sicily, marking the beginning of its direct involvement in the island's affairs. The Roman consuls, Appius Claudius Caudex and Manius Valerius Maximus, led the expedition. Upon arrival, they demanded that the Carthaginian garrison withdraw from Messina. When the Carthaginians refused, the Roman attacked, successfully expelling the Carthaginian forces and securing the city. This action brought Rome into direct conflict with Carthage, setting the stage for the First Punic War. Carthage, unwilling to concede its interests in Sicily, mobilized its forces and allied with Syracuse against Rome. The initial phase of the war saw a series of engagements as both sides vied for control of key positions on the island. Rome quickly demonstrated its military prowess on land, winning several battles against Carthaginian and Syracusan forces. However, Carthage, with its superior navy, dominated the seas, using its fleet to blockade Roman-held positions and disrupt supply lines. Recognizing the importance of naval power, Rome embarked on an ambitious program to build a fleet capable of challenging Carthage's maritime supremacy. The two fleets met off the coast of Mylae, modern Milazzo, in northeastern Sicily. The Roman fleet, commanded by the consul Gaius Duilius, comprised around 120 ships. The Carthaginian fleet, led by Hannibal Gisco, was similarly sized and confident of victory, given their past naval successes. As the battle commenced, the Carthaginians sought to employ their superior maneuverability to outflank and ram the Roman ships. However, the Romans, using the Corvus, managed to grapple and board the Carthaginian vessels. The Corvus proved highly effective, allowing Roman marines to engage in close-quarter combat where they excelled. The innovative use of the Corvus turned the tide in Rome's favor. Despite their inexperience at sea, the Romans captured or destroyed around 50 Carthaginian ships. This stunning victory at Mylae demonstrated that Rome could not only build a fleet, but also effectively challenge Carthage on the open sea. Gaius Duilius was celebrated for his leadership, and the victory at Mylae marked a significant turning point in the First Punic War. The Battle of Mylae was a morale-boosting victory for Rome, but it was far from decisive. The war continued for another 21 years, marked by a series of brutal engagements both on land and at sea. Following Mylae, Rome and Carthage each sought to gain the upper hand through a combination of military operations, strategic alliances, and economic pressure. Rome continued to build its naval capabilities, achieving further victories such as the Battle of Aegates in 256 BCE, one of the largest naval battles in history. This success allowed Rome to launch an invasion of North Africa, though this campaign ultimately ended in failure with a defeat at the Battle of Tunis in 255 BCE. Carthage, meanwhile, adapted to Roman tactics and improved its own strategies. The protracted conflict drained both sides, leading to immense human and economic costs. The final phase of the war saw Rome gradually gaining the upper hand, culminating in the decisive Battle of the Aegates Islands in 241 BCE. As the First Punic War dragged on, the Roman leadership decided to strike at the heart of Carthaginian power by invading North Africa. The rationale behind this bold move was to force Carthage into a direct confrontation on its home turf, thereby shifting the strategic balance and potentially ending the war in Rome's favor. After their naval victories, including the significant triumph at the Battle of Mylae, the Romans felt confident enough to take the fight to Carthage itself. In 256 BCE, Rome assembled a large invasion force, including a substantial fleet and a seasoned army under the command of the consuls Marcus Atilius Regulus and Lucius Manlius Vulso. Their objective was to land in North Africa, capture key Carthaginian cities, and compel Carthage to sue for peace. Upon landing near modern-day Cape Bon, the Roman forces quickly moved inland, capturing the town of Aspis, also known as Clupea. This initial success boosted Roman morale and provided a secure base of operations. The Roman army then advanced towards the strategically important city of Aegates. Carthage, caught off guard by the invasion, scrambled to mount a defense. The Carthaginian army, composed of citizen soldiers and mercenaries, faced significant challenges in coordinating an effective response. Nevertheless, they gathered their forces and prepared to confront the Roman invaders. The Battle of Aegates took place in the late summer of 256 BCE. The Romans, leveraging their superior discipline and battlefield tactics, managed to rout the Carthaginian forces. This victory allowed the Romans to plunder the surrounding countryside and consolidate their control over the region. The success at Aegates seemed to pave the way for a decisive Roman triumph in North Africa. Despite their initial setbacks, the Carthaginians did not capitulate. They regrouped and re-strategized, appointing the experienced general Xanthippus, a Spartan mercenary, to lead their forces. Xanthippus recognized that the Carthaginian army's previous failures were due to poor tactics rather than a lack of capability. He reorganized the army, focusing on integrating Carthage's formidable war elephants and cavalry more effectively. In early 203 BCE, the Carthaginian, under Xanthippus' command, engaged the Roman army near the city of Tunis. The Battle of Tunis was a stark contrast to the earlier engagement at Aegates. Xanthippus deployed his forces with skill, using the elephants to disrupt the Roman infantry formations and the cavalry to outflank and encircle the Roman legions. The Romans, unaccustomed to facing war elephants and unable to adapt quickly to the new tactics, were decisively defeated. The battle was a disaster for Rome, with many of their soldiers killed, captured, or scattered. Consul Regulus himself was taken prisoner. The defeat at Tunis forced the Romans to abandon their campaign in North Africa and retreat, marking a significant setback in their effort to end the war swiftly. The First Punic War continued with a series of naval engagements, as both Rome and Carthage understood the critical importance of controlling the sea lanes for supply and troop movements. By 249 BCE, the focus of the conflict had shifted back to Sicily, where both sides sought to gain the upper hand. Drepana, a coastal town on the western tip of Sicily, became the focal point of a significant naval battle. The Roman fleet, under the command of Consul Publius Claudius Pulcher, aimed to deliver a crushing blow to the Carthaginian navy stationed at Drepana. In the spring of 249 BCE, Claudius Pulcher attempted a surprise attack on the Carthaginian fleet anchored at Drepana. However, the operation began poorly. According to historical accounts, Pulcher sought to divine the gods' favor by observing sacred chickens' feeding behavior, a common practice in Roman religion. When the chicken refused to eat, an ominous sign, Pulcher reportedly threw them into the sea, declaring, "If they won't eat, let them drink." This act was seen as a grave sacrilege and a bad omen. The Roman fleet, numbering about 120 ships, approached Drepana under the cover of darkness. However, the element of surprise was lost when the fleet's movements were detected. The Carthaginian commander Adherbal skillfully organized his ships into a defensive formation, ready to counter the Roman assault. As dawn broke, the Romans found themselves at a disadvantage. The Carthaginian ships, better maneuvered and more adept at naval combat, launched a counterattack. The Carthaginian navy executed a series of ramming and boarding maneuvers that threw the Roman fleet into disarray. Pulcher's fleet suffered heavy losses, with nearly 93 ships either destroyed or captured. The Battle of Drepana was a catastrophic defeat for Rome, highlighting their naval shortcomings and the formidable prowess of the Carthaginian navy. This victory allowed Carthage to regain control of the western Sicilian waters, prolonging the conflict and staving off Roman advances for several more years. By 241 BCE, both Rome and Carthage were exhausted from decades of continuous warfare. The prolonged conflict had drained resources and manpower, and both sides were eager for a resolution. The Romans, having rebuilt their navy after the disaster at Drepana, prepared for a decisive confrontation. The Carthaginian fleet, tasked with supplying their beleaguered forces in Sicily, was the target. The Romans, under the command of Consul Gaius Lutatius Catulus, aimed to intercept and destroy the Carthaginian fleet near the Aegates Islands off the western coast of Sicily. On March 10, 241 BCE, the Roman fleet engaged the Carthaginian ships. The Romans had made several improvements to their naval tactics and ship design since their previous encounters. They had lightened their vessels, making them more maneuverable and effective in combat. The Carthaginian fleet, heavily laden with supplies and manned by hastily assembled crews, was at a disadvantage. The Romans, benefiting from favorable winds and their superior seamanship, launched a coordinated assault. The Carthaginian ships, unable to maneuver effectively, were overwhelmed by the Roman attack. The Battle of the Aegates Islands was a decisive Roman victory. Approximately 50 Carthaginian ships were sunk, and many more were captured. This defeat crippled Carthage's ability to resupply its forces in Sicily and marked the end of their naval resistance. The devastating loss at the Aegates Islands forced Carthage to seek peace. The Carthaginian Senate, recognizing the untenability of continuing the war, sent envoys to Rome to negotiate terms. The resulting Treaty of Lutatius, signed in 241 BCE, formally ended the First Punic War. The terms of the treaty were harsh for Carthage. 1. Territorial concessions. Carthage agreed to cede Sicily and the surrounding island to Rome. This marked Rome's first significant acquisition of territory outside the Italian peninsula. 2. War indemnity. Carthage was required to pay a substantial indemnity to Rome over a period of 10 years, amounting to 3,200 talents of silver. This financial burden further strained Carthage's already depleted resources. 3. Military restrictions. Carthage agreed to restrict its naval activities and refrain from attacking Rome's allies. The end of the First Punic War had profound and lasting impacts on both Rome and Carthage. For Rome, the acquisition of Sicily marked the beginning of its transformation from a regional power into a dominant Mediterranean empire. Sicily became Rome's first province, serving as a critical grain supplier and a base for further expansion. Carthage, on the other hand, faced significant challenges in the aftermath of the war. The financial strain of the war indemnity and the loss of Sicily weakened Carthage economically and militarily. These hardships contributed to internal strife and the eventual mercenary war, a brutal conflict with unpaid mercenaries that further destabilized the Carthaginian state.